Are you self-employed or employed? That's the question we're going to bring up today, and what two aspects of control that the company who has hired you has to answer to when they are addressing the IRS. Now, this is really important from a mortgage perspective because if you're self-employed, the documentation and the income calculations are different than if you're employed. So it's really important for you to understand the difference. In addition, the last couple of years, as a result of the pandemic and a lot of new businesses being formed, I've noticed that there's a lot of companies out there that are calling their workers independent contractors. And so it has caused some pretty big roadblocks to people being able to qualify for a mortgage because they're still new at that company. And so I want to talk about this IRS publication 15A put out in 2022 by the IRS. I think it's really important for people to understand what they're getting themselves into when they work for a company who calls them either an employee or an independent contractor. And more when it's the independent contractor side, because we as the independent contractor will pay more in taxes versus the employer, when it's an employee situation, will pay more taxes. So the first thing you need to understand is that there is a control factor and then there's a financial factor when it comes to what the IRS looks at the definition. And the behavioral control factor, the first one, has to do with, does the employer / business have the right to direct and control your behavior at work? Are you trained? Did they train you? When and where do you have to do the work? What tools or equipment do you use and who paid for them? Who supplied them to you? Do you have to have assistants to be able to do your job? Did they hire those people or did you have to hire those people? Where do you purchase your supplies? Is that dictated by your employer or is that something you get to choose? What work has to be done and then what order or sequence to follow. So these are called behavioral control factors that the employer basically has to address when they're calling you either an independent contractor or an employee. The second thing that's really important is financial control. And that's basically, does the business have the right to control the business aspects of the job you're doing? For example, if you're doing a job where you have to put out a lot of money to do your job and that employer does not reimburse you for it, are you an independent contractor or are you an employee? Right? So that's a big question. And then of course, the extent of your investment. So a lot of times, like when you're first forming a business, like if you're a welder, you have to buy the truck, you have to buy the welding equipment and some of the supplies, and that's a lot of money up front. So if you have an employer who's hired you and not supplying you any of these tools and whatnot to use, then you're probably an independent contractor, self-employed. The other thing is how they pay you. So if you get paid an hourly or a salary wage, then you're probably not an independent contractor. You're probably an employee. There's a lot of these types of question marks when it comes to, are you an employee or are you an independent contractor? And so that's why it's really important to read these types of publications. The IRS just came out with this not too long ago for the very important thing for you to be able to know the difference, whether you're an employer or the employee / independent contractor. So I just wanted to throw this out there so you guys could take a look at it. I will put the link in my post so you guys can see it if you're curious. The really cool thing that I really enjoyed about this particular publication was they give industry examples. So they give construction industry, trucking industry, the computer industry, automobile industry. They have salespeople industry aspects, attorneys, all that kind of stuff. So it's really cool because it really helps you understand what the relationship is between you and your employer, or you as an employer and your employee / independent contractor. And make sure you do it right so you don't get audited, because those suck. Make it a good one.